Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Talking Landscape Photography for tonight. It's really, really awesome to have you with us. And we've got a pretty cool show tonight on one of our favorite areas. I mean, I think every area of Tassie's a bit of a favorite of ours, but the Northeast is particularly interesting because of its huge variety of landscape. And we're really keen to show you all about that tonight. Welcome, Paul and Nick. And we wanted to talk about it last week, but we couldn't really because of the amazing guests we had, and we didn't want to take any attention away from them. But we had quite an amazing Aurora show up. Must be a couple of weeks ago now.
Yeah.
And you guys, we all managed to get out and photograph it. And what we thought we'd do is show some of our pictures from that event. It was significant. It was basically the biggest Aurora that I've seen in Tasmania. A lot of people are saying it's the biggest since 2017. The only other one that I can remember being significant was in April. It was April 20th, 2018, I believe. There's been a few since, of course. We'd get them reasonably frequently, but very, very rarely do we see quite a show like we saw on November the 5th, was it? One of those days.
I'd have to look at the date.
Yeah.
Yeah, Thursday, November 5th, that was it.
Yeah, Thursday. Yeah, I think that date will be etched in my mind like April 20 was. So, yeah. So, whereabouts were you guys at for the event?
You go, Nick.
Well, I was where I normally am, and that's in the Hoelen. I was lucky to have the night. I was able to get out, and unfortunately, I had work early the next morning. So, if I hadn't had work the next morning, I would have stayed out all night without a shadow of a doubt. It was a big event, but I had to pack up, and I got home about I think about 2:30, and then I was up at 6 o'clock to go to work. So yeah, it would have been a much longer show, or much longer night for me had I if I didn't have work that next morning. But I couldn't afford to not get any sleep. But yeah, what about you, Paul? Where were you?
I was in Cloudy Bay, and that's one of my favourite places in the world. And I was actually working, funny enough. But who I work for they're pretty open and give me a lot of autonomy about what to shoot. So I was shooting some properties, and then they were already on the waterfront, and they were pretty south-facing already. I did know it was coming, thanks to you guys and Lukey and Ben and some of the crew that sort of keeps us posted with things. And I didn't see a soul, and I shot all night, and that thing just pulsed non-stop all night long. I think I shot till about 4:30 a.m. and it sort of started dying away around 3:30ish, I think.
And that's quite uncommon for auroras.
Very uncommon.
Normally what you get is a bit of a peak, and it might go off for maybe half an hour really nicely, and then it will subside. But it was one of those really unique ones where it was all night. From sunset, you could actually see it through the sunset, which is quite remarkable, very uncommon. And then, like Paul was mentioning with pulsing, it actually was pulsing. You could actually see almost like puffs of Aurora smoke or whatever you would say coming off of the top of it. It was quite remarkable.
Yeah, and you're on Bruni too, Luke.
Yeah, I was on Bruny Island. I was running a workshop with Bruny Island Photography, and was basically a shortened version of the workshop because of unfortunately not all of our guests could make it because of COVID restrictions, but we're still able to run it with some of the guests, and they were very, very lucky to basically fly into Tasmania and then see one of the biggest auroras Tasmania's probably seen. And the thing that you could also think about is that if the last one was in 2017, digital photography's changed a lot since then. There hasn't actually been that many big, massive auroras that people have even been able to photograph with digital equipment. So, so it's quite interesting even from that perspective. But they were very, very lucky. And being on Bruny Island is very significant because there's basically nothing to obstruct the view towards the southern horizon. Basically, next stop is Antarctica, and we just had the most incredible setup in terms of conditions. It was I think it was right on the new moon, so the skies were completely dark, and we had complete clarity of the sky all night, which is also relatively uncommon. So,
and it wasn't windy. Well, it might have been a little bit windy where you were, but
it was a little breezy. But I call it working conditions, were very, very good. So it was perfection. It really was. And for the night that you wanted it to be completely clear, it actually was. And no moon. It was quite remarkable that it all just lined up like that. It was very special.
It was kind of like the perfect storm.
Perfect geomagnetic storm
of events. To get that strength and length of time, the fact that it, even if it was peaking during the day, which it does sometimes, it actually went all night. Clear skies, no moon, light winds, and it was, I don't know, to get that combination of events as rare as hen's teeth. So I knew it, Nick knew it, Luke knew it, and Luke ended up staying all night, whether he was working or not. I stayed up all night. I was up at 5:30 a.m. shooting dawn again, 5 o'clock a.m. So I had a 30-minute sort of kip in a car, basically. But I knew it was like, this may not ever be this good ever again in my life, was the feeling I had. And 25 odd years of keeping my eye out for it, not as much as these guys, admittedly. It was the best I'd ever seen. And to get that length of time, every minute I thought this is going to be it. And I was trying time lapses and doing bits and pieces. And I thought, should I be down there or should I race over there? But if I did, would it be gone by the time I got there? And because, it would have been good everywhere on the island. And Bruni has quite a few south-facing places, as we'll chat about. Nick, do you want to sort of start putting it into visual form? So
sure. I will.
I'll just do what I need to do. Yeah.
I think it was the biggest that we've seen since 2015.
Wow.
But having said that, I may have, from memory, missed the 2017 show. But the 2015, there are two really big ones in 2015. I can't remember the exact dates, but one of them was as good as the one from the other night. We sort of ran a solar.
Really went all night long there.
I'm pretty sure. Just very, very similar conditions, very similar structures and that sort of thing. And 2015 was probably the best year for auroras. I've been shooting auroras since about 2011, I think, when I first realised that I had a camera that could actually do it, and that it was possible to do in Tasmania. So I've been shooting for them for 10 years and going out, most of the time when I'm able to, when there's something reasonable happening. 2015 was definitely the best year in that 10 years for auroras. And the way the solar cycle works, you have a time where the sun is a bit settled down, called the solar minimum, which we're actually coming out of now, and we're heading now towards solar maximum. But that's still another 2 or 3 years away. There's a bit of debate on when that actually is.
They generally say it's an 11-year cycle, so you've kind of got a fire, like I guess a few years up top, and then and probably only got 2 years maybe where you're at the maximum, and then it trails back off again. So
2015 was solar, if from memory, was the solar maximum, and then we went in decline, and then the last couple of years we've had very little. So it's just starting to pick up again now, and it's really good for us. And a lot of people don't realise that you can shoot the Aurora from Tasmania, and even with an event like that, you could shoot it up in New South Wales.
Easily,
as long as you have the right conditions.
WA, all sorts. Probably SA would have been able to shoot in the southern part of SA. Certainly the coast of Victoria, that sort of thing. So, but
we are lucky. We do get a lot of auroras that are not as big, but they're still worth photographing in Tasmania, and worth going out and working on your composition and working out where to go. And I think both Luke and Paul would agree that having some sort of planning ahead as to where you need to be when these things happen is a really, really good idea. Otherwise, you sort of find yourself hunting for terrestrial compositions to complement the show, and maybe not coming up a bit short. And to me, photographing the auroras, having done it for a long time, for me it's more about the total picture, less about the structure of the aurora. It's more about the aurora adding something to the total scene. And I'll bring up I've got 3 photos that I've done. from that event. Can we see my Photoshop screen?
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right. Yeah. So this is a shot, in the Hoelen area of a jetty, and we're lucky we got lots of jetties that sort of face south in the Hoelen, or near to south, and this one's a good little one tucked away. And I've lit the jetty with a head torch on the top, and I've actually stuck. You can see that there's a ladder at the end there, and I've actually stuck a light that's got a magnet on it to shine backwards underneath the jetty, which gives these sort of beams, I suppose.
Complementary colour.
Yeah, just to add something to it. And
did you actually set it to that greener colour, or was it just?
Yeah, so with white light, this is a quite a shallow area. You might be able to just see the rocks coming through there. It's quite shallow, and it's quite tannin and dark. So when you shoot white light underneath the jetty, you get brown sort of looking water. You can sort of see the bottom and the tannins coming through, and it's not the nicest color. So I actually changed the color of the light to a sort of a greeny blue. And I changed it to all sorts of different colors, actually, just to test them out. I've got pink and purple lights underneath the jetty and all sorts, but the best one was the one that actually looks quite natural, which was sort of a greeny blue color. And it was mainly to complement the other colors of the Aurora and not overwhelm. So
certainly good to show how calm it actually was, being able to even get reflections of the stars there, and the boats don't have too much movement there either, which is also nice. Often it gets all blurry. It must have been a shorter exposure though for that.
Yeah, it was only 4 seconds for this photo, which is unusual in itself for shooting the Aurora.
I think I often recommend to shoot shorter shutter speeds just to maintain a bit of definition in the beams and things like that. But it's always a balance between shutter speed and then also having to put ISO up and things like that.
Yeah, depth of field and noise and all that sort of thing. You do have to make a lot of decisions on those things shooting the Aurora, and sometimes you have to sacrifice things. I find if it's windy for an Aurora, I don't go to a jetty because there'll be boats and they'll be moving everywhere. You won't get the reflections. So I might shoot, and I won't shoot a tree, for example, that I'm lighting up because I don't want movement in the leaves. So I'll go and shoot a building or something like that where it's solid and it's not going to move in the wind, and those sort of decisions you make on the night. So you have, like me, I've got a whole heap of places that I have shot the Aurora before or think it might be a good idea, and I'll basically pick the locations based on the prevailing conditions. But when it's pretty still, like it was this night, going to the water was a good idea to get those reflections. And I've got other examples from other nights where I've had very still conditions, and I've shot boats and yachts and that sort of thing that are,
I love your Franklin work like that.
Yeah, pretty much dead still. I think I missed the Aurora show, didn't I, Luke? The night that
I think you might have. Yeah, we had James Stone on. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, James does wonderful work with Auroras, and yourself, of course. But anyway, I'm only getting to show this particular event. So then I went to what I call an experimental location. So I've got these ideas in my head that I come across about, it might look all right with an Aurora. And I actually pretty much sacrificed the rest of the night going to this place to try it. And I knew that the only way I'd get any decent Aurora shots from this area, because it doesn't face true south and it's blocked by these this sandstone here that you can see, and the next shot you'll see a wider view of the sandstone. It wouldn't have worked with a small Aurora. You wouldn't have got much more than a faint glow above the sandstone. So this was, I decided to go there because it was such a big Aurora, and try out some more landscape compositions, I suppose. And this was one of them that I quite liked. and again lit with the light, very low level light.
What temperature light did you use, Nick?
Well, yeah, you don't get it in the metadata, unfortunately, so I can't check. But the actual temperature that the shot was taken at would have been 3450 Kelvin, that's sort of my sweet spot for Aurora colour. And I shoot most of my Auroras at 3450 Kelvin, which is something I can set on my camera, Nikon D850, or I think most higher end Nikons you can set a custom temperature. But this, I reckon this was a bit cooler than that. I reckon this would have been 4800 or something like that. I would have shot the this at to not, because the sandstone's already orange, you don't want to overwhelm with like a 3400 sort of that more orange light on or already orange surface. It sort of overwhelms it a bit. And one of the problems I have lighting these is, do I shoot really low level and then, or do I, show more of the rock by lighting it a bit more? And it's always a bit of a battle in my head as to what I should do. And I often will shoot auroras that are, or landscapes that are lit at different intensities, and then choose later which one's a better example. This is the one I chose for that. This shot from the same location, the little headland you can see at the end there is the same location as the last shot, but obviously a wider shot back. This got a lot of attention, of course, because people like shiny things. And so as I was packing up to leave, and I'd been here at this location for at least a couple of hours, trying different compositions, and I didn't notice the bioluminescence until I was actually packing up. And I don't know why I suddenly noticed it, but
I was going to ask that. Did you kick something or?
This water is not lapping. This water is dead calm. So there was no waves. There were no waves that were actually signaling that there was bioluminescence in the water. But right on the edge, you get a little. You can just sometimes see a little bit of a twinkle right on the edge of the water. And I thought, oh, hang on, that might be bioluminescence. Anyway, I'd already packed up my gear. And I had my gumboots on, thankfully, and I walked into the water and it lit up like a Christmas tree. And so I was already tired and thinking about how awful it was going to be at work the next day. And so I almost reluctantly got my gear back out to shoot it, but I thought I can't not shoot the bioluminescence that's there because I knew, even though I'm not a massive fan of this actual composition in my own mind, I knew that the bioluminescence would be really popular and probably a more unique photo from what other people were getting. I didn't know if there was bioluminescence anywhere else or not. And I did notice in the end that there were some people that shot down at South Arm and in the Hoelen area that got a little tiny sprinkle of bioluminescence. But if anyone wants to know what I actually did, this was quite a difficult shot to set up and I only did a few attempts. I had to set up my light off to the left, sitting on top of my camera bag, and had to sort of guess an exposure because it was a lot further back than I would normally do it. So this took a few goes. And then I had to wander off about 100 metres and go looking for a big stick to agitate the water. So then I came back and basically set up a 13 or 15 second exposure to give me enough time to agitate the water. And then, basically I thrashed around with the stick in the water. And so that's what created the bioluminescence to look like that. Otherwise, you wouldn't see anything at all if I didn't agitate it. But it worked pretty well. And it got a lot of attention when I posted in the Aurora groups and stuff because people just like shiny things. And if you put something shiny in a photo, being Aurora, but if you combine it with bioluminescence, they're just eye-catching for people. But yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this actual composition. I could have done better with it, but I was packing up and going home before I even noticed it was there. So I took a few shots like this and then packed up and went. But yeah, anyway, that's my basic haul from that night. I've got a lot more photos, of course, and a lot of different compositions, particularly around this sandstone. And some work better than others, but this one was, they're the ones I've chosen to show at this stage, but no doubt I'll dig a few out, process some more as time goes on. But yeah, anyway.
And you got some incredible stuff as well, Paul, from around Cloudy Bay.
Yeah, I had a good shake of the stick because I literally was probably shooting it for about.
And I'll try and unshare.
10 p.m. till 4-ish a.m. So yeah, 6 hours of shooting, essentially, which is not the kind of regular clean window you tend to get with Auroras. So I was, so screen sharing all right, gentlemen?
Yep.
Yeah, so I had to go on some time lapses. So I managed to get a couple done tonight. Just 7 hours later on a 10-year-old computer with not quite working, but this is the view towards the lighthouse. So occasionally you'll see the glow of the South Brittany Lighthouse coming out. I'm guessing, would that be Lucky? It's because that's quite late in the morning. So it's a little bit late.
I think there was Venus about, so I wouldn't be surprised if that's
Well,
Venus.
I know it's at that position sort of earlier in the night. I wasn't sure if it was there later in the night as well. But anyway, it's pretty bright. It's I can't think of anything else it could be. But that you can see sort of the last corner. Now, what I did, because one of the big things you've got with Auroras is light is a huge issue, and shutter speed is the other issue. So I actually shot this with an 85mm. And one of the reasons I did that is because it's one of the sharpest, cleanest lenses I've got. And also it's a 1.4, so that's a lot of light in. And so I have to use quite a lot shorter shutter speed as a result. I think this is probably only like 4 or 5 seconds or something, but it just came out a lot crisper and clearer. And I even experimented in bringing my ISOs down to like 1600 or something when it got really bright, which is also unusual because normally you've really got to push it up to 32, 6400. And you sort of take a bit of a hit. And the autofocus on this seemed to work a bit better and be more consistent. Got a lot of soft foregrounds in a lot of my shots in terms of looking up close and personal. Rest of them I mainly shot on a 16-35. And you can see kind of the soft grainy foreground and the trying to pull shadow out, details out is a bit of an issue. I tried doing some HDRs as well.
Did you take multiple frames of the same thing so you can do some median stacking?
Well, I was doing time lapses on another camera.
Oh, so you got all the frames you need to median stack, and if you spend a bit more time and get rid of that noise a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, but of course, time lapse is sitting in the same composition for an hour, so you weren't getting the 30, 25 compositions I was getting in an hour shooting by hand. So it's a bit of a that's. I actually did a whole stack of panoramas, and I'll get on to Lucky a little bit later. Most of them won't stitch, which is a bit frustrating. So I'm going to have to figure out either how to do it manually or have a bit of a go. But that's one that worked. Yeah, and basically the foreground that I played with almost the whole time was this beautiful Cloudy Bay foreshore creek, which is changeable like every day. Like every time you come here, it's different.
I was there a couple of days later and it just had totally washed out. All of the foreground you would have taken was just completely gone. And would have been none of those ripples or anything. So you got lucky actually with the conditions that were there.
Everything about that whole night was lucky. I had tingles the whole time, and it was really special just being there all night by myself. I did not see a single person like the entire night.
No, neither did I actually. But that was by design. I deliberately didn't go to places that I knew people would be at as well, because there are some places that are really popular, aren't there?
Yeah, there was a lot of people at the lighthouse. You'll see in my photos that was hard to avoid. But yeah, we'll get to that.
Well, the issue with also having people around is they're walking into your shots, or their screens are lighting up, or their red light from their focusing systems in your shots, and it can actually ruin your shots. So, and it can create a little bit less of relaxed, fun time especially when you're committing to time lapses and things that are a huge amount of work and time. But this again, you can see how this is a lot crisper and clearer. This is actually a panorama with the 85. So again, you can see its crispness come through relative to the others. It sort of wasn't, it was light wind, but it wasn't no wind. So there's reflections, but not like perfect reflections. But Cloudy Bay down this area is quite low. So it was fairly sheltered from whatever winds were there anyway.
Yeah.
And again, you can see from a single shot, moving back to 1635, which is only a 2.8. It's a lot. I did find it quite challenging focusing during the night, to be honest. I kept getting focus creeping. Every time I moved a shot, it's like every time I even lifted or moved the lens around, it actually crept.
Yeah, that's weird.
And sometimes I didn't realize. And to the point where it was pretty much every photograph. So I missed a few. And so you can get away with a lot sort of on social media in terms of crispness and sharpness. But if you ever want to print it or do something decent with it, that's when it falls apart a little bit. That one was kind of a reasonable focus out of the ones that I got. And the other massive issue I had to deal with that Lucky didn't was I had huge issues with dew. So every single one of my time lapses, probably about a quarter or third of the way through, just started misting up to the point where the photos are basically unusable. And not being super experienced with dealing with that, I didn't have any, warming devices I could strap to the lens or strap on, motors with little fans that you can run across the lens and stuff like that. Like I'm just not as savvy as some others. So I unfortunately got pretty caught out. So I spent today trying to put these time lapses together, and it's not a huge amount of success, but this was probably almost right at the end of the night where it was actually fading away. And fading away is a relative term because fading away still meant it was still better than most nights you'll get when you're chasing auroras, as you can see. But I started to find a nice leading line. I kind of wish I had gumboots on at this stage, but I'd literally walked about 25 minutes to get here already. By the time I had some gumboots in the car, but by the time I went up and get them, it would have taken me 40 minutes to come back, and probably wouldn't have been worth it. So standing in the middle of that creek and using those lines would have been pretty fun. I got as close as I could with this kind of composition. But I was starting to struggle with the light on the foregrounds here, and you can see the greenish kind of mottled kind of hues coming through in the bottom there to keep it in there. But same time, I didn't.
There's a couple of things in that, Paul, if you don't mind me interrupting. It's probably part of that would be from the it would be from the vignette correction. Like in the corners particularly, it tries to boost the exposure back up again in the corners, and so if you just leave the vignette correction turned off, you often have that nice fade.
Oh, you can really see that in the bottom left corner, can't you?
Yeah, so that's one thing to do with night photos, and also just fade the foreground, darken the foreground and fade it upwards. It doesn't really matter if the foreground's a bit darker as well.
Generally it doesn't. I just like it's actually quite a nice line to be able to use. Otherwise, this would end up just being a square format, which it probably will end up being if I'm going to print it, I think.
Do a 4:5, yeah.
But it was just absolutely spectacular. And here again, I moved back to the 85, and all of a sudden, it's crisper, cleaner, brighter, more light coming in, and I was just like, oh. I had a 24 1.4, which is actually perfect for this, but I was using it for the time lapses, and I was stuck going, oh, should I take it off for time lapse? But the 1635 was more versatile for the composition. So the whole night I was juggling between the two. But you can see how much crisper and cleaner. That might even be just 1600 ISO, I think. Yeah, that's how much more light it was letting in. I was like, oh my god. And that's actually East Cloudy Head, and that's sort of quite late in the night. When things were, I wouldn't say dying down, but they were certainly getting a lot lower. It's probably about 3:30 in the morning now. So it was interesting experimenting with different lenses, different compositions, different shutter speed, remembering to adjust each time to get your focus right, to keep the shutter speed as low as the ISO as low as you can within reason, and to not compromise on shutter speed, because if you push your shutter speed up, you're going to get blurred stars, which is, loses that sort of integrity of a crisp sort of thing. I guess there was quite a few, satellites or shooting stars or something floating around during the night as well. But
there were a few shooting stars. I saw an iridium flare and a lot of satellites, because it was so dark. You could see all sorts of things going on. It was pretty cool.
Let's just see.
There's an awful lot of technical stuff that you can do, and I think Luke's been through it before on his shows with median stacking and all that sort of thing, and they've got their pros and cons. I don't tend to bother with it, and sometimes I regret it. But I just try and get the best middle ground with everything that I can when I shoot, and hope that it's for the best, but every time you shoot an aurora or a nightscape, you learn something new. And I think you've probably just gone through that, Paulie.
Yeah, I mean, trial by
learning
fire
curve.
to some extent. And I hadn't really experimented with time lessons before, so that was kind of a work thing, really. They nudged me to do it. Spent most of today trying to figure out how to how to actually make that work. I'm just looking at one now. I'm not sure work would be happy for me showing them, so maybe I won't. But there's one. If Licky shows someone, try and find it, and I might show you one.
You're not sharing your screen at the moment, mate. If you,
I know I've done that on purpose because I'm
cool.
just searching around files, and I thought Licky might have a go.
All right, I might I'll share a few of mine. So first of all, what I'll do is I'll just I was fortunate to get approached by Australian Geographic to provide some images. I think Nick was too, but you know,
you'd already
handed the baton on, which is really nice of you to do, Nick.
I just wasn't quick enough, mate. That's the problem. I was at work and you were, lounging around at home doing nothing, I think.
Yeah, that's right.
I found one of them.
And so anyway, if you are keen to get a bit of a rundown from the night, this is actually I only just literally found out that it's live a few hours ago, so I was going to post my own social media about it, but if you search for it on their website, you'll be able to find it. But yeah, basically it's just going through the experience and some of the images, which I'll just show in a sec as well. And then also do have a bit of a spot about things to capture, tips in terms of going through some of the get these sort of images. So so that was kind of cool. So it's all there.
Yeah, just explain that lighthouse shot, Luke, because you were pretty clever with that. That lighthouse isn't a functional lighthouse.
Yeah, it's not a functional lighthouse. So so you can see here, this is the normal state of it. This was actually quite early in the evening. You can would have been just after. You can see a little faint bit of twilight still there. I've kept this person in the picture for the context of the article because this is what I provided to AusGeo, and I figured that actually like having people in the shot because it's interesting. Probably would keep them in there anyway because it adds, talks about the experience. If I was going to put a printout or anything like that, I obviously wouldn't worry about having people in it. So that's the normal state. And I unfortunately only remembered a bit further on into the evening that that there's a rear window in the lighthouse that you can actually rest a little lantern or have a little aperture MC light that I can control a whole bunch of settings on, and I just had that leaning against the window. Totally, there's no damage or anything. That it's just like putting a light on a windowsill. There's no dramas there. So you sort of have this look. This is I believe this is an iridium flare. It doesn't look quite so flare-like here, but and that's Venus there, I'm pretty sure, in the Milky Way. And then you got the large
12 mil, Luke?
Yeah, this would be at 12 millimeters. Yeah, we've got the large and small Magellanic Clouds there as well. And then a whole bunch of people. For some reason, they sort of feel like shooting out this way is fine to stand there. Like that's the best possible position to get a photograph. So unfortunately I was already running a workshop, otherwise I would have gone and given them one, but I know it's a bit arrogant of me, but it's remarkable the positions people decide to sit and take photos when I think the main photos, if you're up on the hill like that, you might as well have the lighthouse in it, or else it's why you're up there, you might as well be on the beach somewhere. Anywho, so then this is more like when I put the light on actually behind it, and you can sort of see it obviously doesn't have the light going on in the top there, but to be honest, if that light in the top was on, it would be blowing the photos out terribly anyway because of the high ISOs that you shoot at. But it just does give it a really lovely amount of presence to the images.
Yeah, it's
my favorite of the night.
It's a great move, mate. Well done.
That's actually the ranger, the caretaker of the lighthouse, with his partner.
I was standing there the next night talking to them, and they were going on and on about, that's amazing photographer. Luke was up here and he's telling us this and telling us that.
Yeah, well, I actually spoke to them earlier in the night.
I stayed there for 3 hours and got nothing.
I spoke to them at sunset, and and they were talking about sunset. I didn't realize, and I was talking to them about Aurora, and they're like, "Oh, is there Aurora tonight?" I was like, "Yeah, no, it's going to be there right after sunset. You better, you know, you don't want to miss this one." And then they're like, "Oh, well, we'll go down and make some tea, and we'll be up a bit later." And this was just right on sunset, just when it was starting. So I thought that was quite hilarious. It's the different priorities when you're not a photographer. And I did have to
first.
did have to make sure that they were aware that people were actively taking photos there, and try not to disturb us, because there's nothing worse than telling someone to, you know, that something's on, and then they turn up and ruin all your photos. You're like, oh, maybe if I didn't tell them, but then that's kind of not nice either. So it's one of those things when you're shooting with other people, as I'm sure everyone's aware. Yeah, so obviously took a whole bunch of different versions of the same thing, and in different sort of things. One thing I did find challenging in terms of this is, you know, finding a white balance for Aurora, and even just the color profile settings that you use in Lightroom for, like, you know, camera vivid or camera standard can make a massive difference just in terms of the coloration that is rendered in the photos. And so I spend a lot of time trying to work out, you know, how much of this purple did I want to come through. These would be two different camera calibration profiles. One's really pulling that purple through, and then the other one, the purple's more subtle, but you can now sort of see a little few green bands come through. So which one's more accurate? I guess who really knows? But that's just one thing to consider.
Is there a name for those vertical columns? Are they called pillars or something?
They're beams.
Just beams?
Just generally referred to as beams. And these are curtains, the ones that sort of wrap around down below, and then you've got the auroral, I believe that's just like an auroral arc that they call it. And then, yeah, these are all beams coming off the other sides there. So I do have a time lapse of this scene, but unfortunately there was a gentleman here that didn't have a cover over his lights. Every photo he was taking was putting a little beam onto the lighthouse. I kept on giving him a piece of tape to put over his camera, and it kept falling off, which was really handy. So that was lovely. But I managed to get
have a little bit of tape if you're going to be shooting.
Yeah, definitely. And this is looking off of the back, down towards, so looking back past the lighthouse.
A lot of detail in the foreground there, Lukey. That's impressive.
Yeah. No, it's it's not my first rodeo, Paul. Thanks for that.
Did you medium stack those, mate?
No, that's not medium stacked. It's just I do use a program called I very highly recommend DxO Pure Raw for pre-processing images is incredible. Very highly recommend that in terms of its noise reduction capabilities and sharpening capabilities. It's a bit of a game changer, to be honest. So it's definitely
worth talk to you about that one.
I think you should run yours through that too, Paul. And then I had to drop the clients back, and then decided to go back out and shoot at the neck, which was really well worth it. It's very rare to see the Aurora so big at a location like that, so I definitely made sure that I went out, and you can see there was actually another gent that turned up, and that's his light there, but he didn't actually. I was worried he was going to come up the stairs, but he didn't. So so that, you know, the cars are there, and then this is another one just looking off the side of the stairway as well. I love seeing the colors coming through reflected along here. So and they're the only ones that I've done to any decent level so far, but I'll be able to run a time lapse and things like that off of the next stuff as well, so that'll be quite nice.
Beautiful work, mate. You've done very well.
Yeah, cheers, mate. Yeah, I still, so all of those haven't actually been shown before because I had them on embargo with Osgeo, so I need to get a few of those out there. So that's all about my Aurora experience. Don't know if
you didn't have any issues with the dew up there or down south, did you? Because you had a bit of wind.
Oh, there was actually a bit coming in right at the end, but just when I was leaving. So I didn't really have what am I trying to say? It was coming in, and so it would have been a factor, but I had to leave around midnight because of the clients I was with. That was a bit of a saving grace in a way.
Like elastic band and a snap hand warmer.
Yeah, the best of all is you can buy these little neoprene sleeves on eBay for about $20, and that's a much better but because but the standard way people say is to actually use a hand warmer and use a rubber band and actually strap the hand warmer to the lens. And all you have to do is keep the lens a few degrees above the dew point to stop the formation of the condensation. But the best is, from a environmental perspective, just to get one of those neoprene sleeves that just plugs into a USB battery charger, and it just wraps around the lens and keeps it warm. So that's probably the one. I have one in my bag. I never use it. It's very rare to have to use it. But the problem is when you actually need it, you either don't pack it or you haven't put it on the lens already. And unfortunately, once it starts happening to the lens, it's hard to stop it, even if you do put something warm on the lens. So
yeah,
it's already sort of there. So yeah.
And then there's the hours of fiddling around afterwards, putting them together.
Yeah. So so definitely something to think about. And it's really easy to tell if there's going to be a problem, because you can look at the forecast and just see if the dew point is going to meet the forecasted temperature. Sometimes you can see little curbs that will show where the dew point line is versus the temperature line, and if they're coming very close together, the chance of mist or condensation is very high. So you need to keep an eye on if the dew point temperature is going to be meeting the ambient temperature. Yeah. And especially then if there's no wind as well. So
preview of one that I did, which I'm just working on.
Well, you got a bit of bioluminescence in the waves here too, Paul.
Yeah, I didn't realise that.
There's a couple there. You can see it over in the corner. Oh, there you go, right at the end.
Yeah, it's just a little. Yeah, that's right. There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
Cracking my first one, boys.
Yeah, nice work. Nice work. I find the easiest way to avoid dew with time lapse is just not to shoot time lapse.
Oh yeah, but when you're shooting Aurora, time lapse is great because you can. I say that in my article, actually. Like, you just set it to time lapse, and then you can actually enjoy the show. And I really love that.
Yeah, and my counterpoint to that would be, yeah, sure, do a time lapse, but take two cameras. Like, if you've only got one camera,
I totally agree with that.
It would pain me personally to just have your camera plonked and shooting a time lapse, because I mean, to me, and this is a very personal thing, to me, the joy of these nightscape sort of shooting is to find compositions, and I do heaps of moving around, looking for different angles and that sort of thing, yeah. So I reckon if you like the idea of time lapse, and you've got two cameras, then set one up and let it run, and then run around and try and find some other compositions while you're letting the time lapse run.
And it's good too, because if you are running around finding compositions, you know the time lapse is running, so you got all the safety shots, so you're capturing everything that's happening no matter what, so you don't have to feel like you're missing out on anything if you're changing compositions or moving around, because you've got one camera that's going to be getting the shots anyway. So it's a really nice way of working. You can also turn them into star trails, because when you're looking south, you're always going to be facing the south celestial pole, so you can get the beautiful star trails with the circles. And yeah, you can do a time lapse. You can
be a little bit clever in where you set it up, though, because it can actually stop you getting a whole bunch of other shots if you thoughtlessly put it in the wrong spot.
Yeah,
and all of a sudden it's in half your photographs, or you can't get in front of it. So, and if there's other people around, it's another issue again. But
you've got to monitor it, and you
don't want someone to flog your camera.
yeah. Well, there's that as well. So fantastic. Well, we are here to talk about the northeast, so that's enough Aurora talk. So,
and we're out of time.
It didn't turn into an Aurora show. We're just starting a bit of pre-chat about the massive Aurora that we've had recently, and we thought it deserved a little bit of airtime.
Yeah, it was exciting. It was worth it. Yeah,
absolutely. And now we'll move on to the northeast, and gentleman Nick Monk is very, very experienced shooting in the northeast. In fact, quite often you'll drop everything and head up there to shoot northeast, and I don't really know too many folks that kind of have that affinity for the area, so we're lucky to have Nick with us, and some of his most incredible images are taken up there. So Nick, maybe we'll hand it over to you, and maybe you can bring up a map and just show everyone sort of where we're looking at for this show.
Yeah, I can do that. I'll try not to be too detailed on the map like I have been before, because
let's give it about 15 minutes max.
Well, yeah, maximum.
Yeah.
Bring that up, and get rid of Photoshop as well. Have you seen the map?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. I mean, the northeast is a. Actually, I might bring it over here. Are you still seeing it now?
Yep.
Yeah, cool. The northeast is obviously a big area, and it's not well defined. It's definitely worth saying from the outset, though, that this is an ancient landscape that's been well occupied by the Aboriginal people of Tasmania. And a lot of these areas are special to them, and just wanted to acknowledge that off the bat, that this is a special place where people lived for many thousands of years in harmony with the land. So,
and I'll also be talking a bit about that in my section where I cover off the Wookaleena walk, which I'll take people through. So
yeah, great. So a lot of this area is sort of this area we're basically talking about, sort of from Scamander, Falmouth, 4 Mile Creek, St Mary's, Fingal, Mathina, sort of north, and then up here on the north coast.
I think we might be looking at a different screen, actually, Nick. We can see a map, but I don't think we can see a mouse cursor or anything like that. So
how about I put it back over here? Can you see?
Yeah, we can see that now. Yep.
Yeah, just because I put it on a different screen, so I'll probably have to reshare it. I'll just look at it this way. I'm just not looking at the camera as I'm going, but
that's fine. A better angle.
Yeah. So basically from the southern part of the east coast here. Well, it's not the southern part of the east coast, but the southern part of what I'm showing on the map, Scamander, and then you've got St Mary's and Fingal down here. Through to Mathina, Mount Victoria Forest Reserve we'll talk about, and this central area, the blue tier, Minamata, the blue tier, and then through, basically we're talking this area, Bridport as well. And I think, Luke, did you have shots from?
Yeah, I'll talk about Bridestowe and Nabala there.
Yeah.
I mean, some people include Launceston and all of that in the northeast too. It's sort of a bit, I'd say the line's kind of between Launceston and that sort of area, Lilydale and all of that. And then the other thing I just sort of mention as well is sometimes Flinders Island and the Furneaux group are also classed as the northeast. Obviously, we've done a separate show on that, so it's just worth calling that out. Which is just north of that.
Haven't we? We've done some stuff up in the northeast on the show, haven't we? I'm getting some feelings of deja vu. I might be wrong.
A little bit, I think.
We've done an overall episodes where we talk about our favorite places and things. So
yeah, that's right. And some of the photos I'm going to show you would have seen before, I reckon, on the show. Not all,
I guarantee some of them I'm showing haven't been seen before, so that's going to be
cool. That's good news. So for a lot of people, when you talk about the northeast, for a visitor, they tend to focus a lot around the St Helens area. St Helens is a beautiful town and a great place to base yourself. If you're photographing in the northeast, you can sort of branch out from there in numerous directions. And of course, we have up here the Bay of Fires. It says the Bay of Fires Conservation Area here, but it's this whole bay that goes sort of down to Binlong Bay. That's what is known as the Bay of Fires, and it's a very popular place to photograph and to camp. There's some very popular campgrounds down.
Maybe here. Put it on the satellite view or hybrid view, Nick.
Yeah. Yeah, so there's some very popular camp, all these Generate Beach, Swim Cart, Cozy Corner, all these areas along here are very popular camping areas. And in summertime, it can be hard to get a spot in there. They're free camping at the moment. I'm not quite sure why they're still free, but they are. There are other areas in the northeast that are particularly around Mount William National Park, which Luke will talk a bit about, the Wookaleena walk that sort of leads off from Mount William National Park. And the campsites up there are paid campsites. They're not expensive, but you do have to pay. And it actually means that there's less people there usually in the height of summer. But these ones near Binlong Bay on the Bay of Fires are very well patronised. And even in the middle of winter, you'll get plenty of people camping there. but I find winter's the nicer time to camp on the Bay of Fires, just because there isn't quite the volume of people, and you also get nice gentlemen's hours for sunrise and sunset in the area, so you can sleep. You can sort of sleep in and get up at 6:30 and still catch the sunrise in the middle of winter.
Probably not unreasonable to say it's probably the best weather in Tassie at that time of year too.
Yeah. It's definitely if that's The northeast is definitely the place to go generally if you want the better weather. Having said that, if you've got an east coast low happening, which the eastern seaboard viewers would know well, you get some huge amount of rain that will come into the northeast, but it's not something that happens that often. But it has certainly happened a few times in the last few months, though. And then, of course, from Bennelong Bay, around Skeleton Point here, you've got Grants Point down here. This is all accessible by car. There's a gravel road network that goes along here, and you can see there are different points where you can park your car and access the coast, and it's definitely worthwhile exploring those areas and shooting sunrise, and particularly sunrise, but sunset as well from these areas. Up here at the height of Bennelong Bay here is the area that used to have, until only a month or two ago, used to have the very famous lone tree, which
Mate, rest in peace.
Rest in peace, lone tree. I'm not particularly upset about the lone tree falling over naturally, is what actually happened, because I'm just sick of seeing photos from the same spot when there's so much more.
But you should be grateful that's where everyone is, Nick, and it leaves all your favourite spots alone.
Yeah. But it's just, I just think that photographers should maybe branch out and look for something a bit more original. I'm not putting down people that photograph the lone tree and have great shots of it. I just think it's one great spot out of many great spots in the area. So please have a look around. And now that tree is gone, I think people will branch out a bit more and see what else.
It's still definitely a beautiful area, though, irrespective of the tree being there. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I mean, all in through here, near where the tree was, is all great shooting, and it's right next to the town. You just have a ball, and then obviously up near the campsites, you've got all these little headlands, and they're fantastic for compositions, and I've definitely got a few to show. And then further up here, there's some great stuff around Cozy Corner. Both ends of Cozy Corner has some great rocks, and you can see the rocks just keep going. You've got these little islands of rock out to sea, which make great compositions as well. So yeah, definitely have a good look around, and it's very, very accessible generally. Some of the rock scrambling can be difficult in some of these locations because they're very large granite boulders, some of them. So you have to be reasonably sure of foot to explore them properly. Excuse me. So that's the Bay of Fires. Further up north, we have Eddiston, Larapuna, Eddiston Point. Doesn't have Larapuna here, which shows the.
I need to send an email to Google, definitely.
Yeah, the Aboriginal name. So Larapuna is an absolutely magnificent place, and the highlights.
Easternmost point of Tassie, isn't it?
Yeah, it's the easternmost point of Tassie. Yep. And you've got the lighthouse here, which is a fantastic granite lighthouse. I've got a few photos of it, which I'll show.
Yeah.
The beach south of Eddiston is fantastic, and the area in front of the lighthouse here is absolutely wonderful for shooting as well. You just can't go wrong. It's definitely free to visit. Obviously, Larapuna, Eddiston Point has been handed back to the Aboriginal people. So if you do visit, please respect that aspect of it. There's a boat ramp here that people access, and all around these rocks is great for taking photographs. One of my favourite places up on the northeast, on the coast, is just north of Larapuna, and that's Picnic Rocks, which is this area here. I've got a couple of photos of it. It's just a fantastic stack of rocks, and it has this little sort of neck of sand that leads out to it. You can get some great compositions there, particularly in changing light. It's just a fantastic location. And then just north here, you've got more rocks, and you've got the Deep Creek campground, which is a lovely sheltered little campground just off the coast. A great spot.
Great campground.
It is a paid campsite, but
like $13 or something. It's
$13 a night. It's in the Mount William National Park. This whole area here is actually part of Mount William National Park. There's Mount William there. Actually, I don't think that's where Mount William is. It's further north. Yeah, Mount William's up here. And Luke will talk more about that with the Walkalina walk. But the further north you go, there are more campsites, and no doubt Luke will talk further about that. But you can see there's just beach after beach, and they're all famous for being very white. They have that quartzite sand from the granite and feldspar, and the quartzites all mixing in there, and just beautiful place to visit. And then through to you've got Muscle Road Bay here, which is another sort of shacky area. Plenty to shoot there. I reckon there's probably a few aerial shots worthy in that.
I think probably you've done a few bit of drone work there.
Yeah.
Oh, you have bias at them.
Maybe one day, Nick. Never say never.
Yeah, we'll get there. There is a wind farm over on this side at Cape Portland here, which is worthwhile visiting. You can actually visit up there, and you've got this wonderful visitor centre, the Tibrakuno Visitor Centre, which is a Aboriginal interpretation centre, and will give you some great insight into the Aboriginal people's affinity with this area. And yeah, look, all this Cape Portland, all these capes here that are accessible are definitely worth visiting. So that's sort of the coastline. And then if we head this way towards Waterhouse, some great shooting in this area here, and some lovely campsites as well, which is accessed off a road here called Homestead Road, off Waterhouse Road. Definitely worth a visit. It's a very popular camping area with lots of campsites, but great. And then we have Bridport here, which is famous for their old pier. I've got a couple of shots of it, which is a collapsed jetty.
Love your moon shot from there. It's magnificent.
Yeah, I have got that to show. So
Farm Bugles there too, famous golf course.
Yeah. So I recently actually stayed here with my wife. She's into a bit of golf, and she played golf, and I went off and took photographs, and I thought it was the best arrangement ever.
The other thing too with that area to note is then there's a airport there that can fly to Flinders Island too, and it's also where the ferry or the passenger or the boat service leaves to take people over to the Furneaux group as well.
Yeah,
so you can see where the proximity of Flinders Island there. It's actually quite a quick flight from there.
Yeah. You can also fly from. You can also fly to Flinders from Launceston, and they've started some passenger flights from Hobart too, which is
the difference is that the guys at Bridestowe, so the guys at Bridport can actually, the luggage limits are very different, so it's very handy for photographers. Yeah,
definitely worthwhile staying up there and heading over to Flinders. So, and just a bit more, the internal area of the northeast is a mix of farmland, logging areas, and old growth forest. It's a real mixed bag. It's it's very similar to the edges of the Tarkine, Takana, but it's much more fragmented in the northeast. So there's some amazing pockets of old growth forest, particularly around the Blue Tier Forest Reserve, which is accessible from, you'd be staying at St Helens, and you can go there, drive all the way up there as a day trip. And also the very large Mount Victoria Forest Reserve, which takes in a whole bunch of different sort of areas. There's some magnificent forests in there, and also around Wellborough. And of course, this area is also famous for mountain biking. It's really taken off. Blue Tier itself has starts for a couple of major mountain bike rides. So you go drive as far as you can to the top of the Blue Tier, and that's where the mountain biking starts. So be aware of that, because they do have shuttle buses heading up.
The most accessible is Derby, where you've got 150 kilometres of trails with no shuttles needed, which is about 20 minutes west of Wellborough.
Yep.
And then you can, Wellborough itself has a few trails to the north and to the south. There's and slightly to the south that actually ride into Derby. And then the main famous one is the Blue Tier, which you actually shuttle through Wellborough and up the road a bit. And then they've actually built trails now to go all the way from Blue Tier to St Helens, which I haven't actually done yet.
Yeah, so there's a ride that goes all the way.
Oh, we're sort of at our 15-minute mark now, Nick. So,
all right, well, we'll get into it.
There's those waterfalls there too. Probably worth.
I've got photos of some of these waterfalls, Ralph Falls and Mathina Falls. I haven't included any St Columba Falls because I've never successfully photographed it. I've photographed it several times, and every time I've failed. It's one of Tasmania's largest waterfalls, and it's
pretty accessible.
It's very accessible. There's a short walk to it. It's definitely worth visiting, but it's a challenge to shoot well. And anyone that's visiting St Columba Falls, I'd suggest the original rules for waterfall shooting being very, very early in the day or very late in the afternoon is probably best for St Columba Falls, because you have some challenges with the contrast in that area if you try and shoot it during the day with neutral density filters, and it's quite slippery to get around the compositions if you choose to shoot away from the actual lookout that's there. So I've only ever seen a couple of really great shots from St Columba.
Yeah, but they're pretty impressive when they're good. Like, it's one of the most dynamic sort of looking waterfalls. Like, it can get pretty wild, and you could get like it must be hard to even get one frame sometimes, and it's just really going. So
if it's pumping, it's you'll have a lot of trouble with mist getting on your lens, and the rocks around it will be soaking wet and very, very slippery. You have to be extremely careful on these rocks here. They hold no prisoners. So if you do shoot there, the one tip I'd give you is probably try not to shoot the entire waterfall as one shot, because once you get above the waterfall, you start to get these contrast issues and it looks a bit messy. It's got all these different sort of, you might be able to see, well, you can't really see from that logo there, but it's got lots of different branches and offshoots and cascades here and there. And if you're prepared to take the time and go at the right time, I reckon you can get some great shots. And I just haven't been patient enough, I don't think, to really deal with it. I just go and shoot other places instead. And there's another waterfall we'll talk about here called this is up near the Blue Tier in Gould's country, called Halls Falls, which is a great short walk and great waterfall and a great river to shoot, so definitely worth doing. Anyway, I'm going to bring up some photos because otherwise we'll run out of time. I will.
So the way we'll do it is Nick will show his sort of folio from the area, and then Paul and I will show ours as well, rather than sort of chopping and changing between locations.
Yeah. And I mean, I've got stuff from all over the place, so I'll just sort of go through it. But now you're familiar with the map. We might be right. We got that up, have we?
Yep.
Yeah. All right, so I'll start with just the Bay of Fires, what you're likely to see there. So this is what you get to shoot: granite with red lichen on it. It's I don't like to use the word iconic too much, but it is very iconic for the area. That's if you're a photographer, you're going to be shooting on the coast, you're going to be shooting red lichen covered rocks, and it looks great and changes to all different shades depending how close you are to the water or how much light's on it, whether it's before sunrise or after sunrise or during the day. The colours change all the time. So it's definitely worth exploring the different times. You get these great shapes in the rock here. This one always reminded me of a couple of people laying down with their bums in the air. I don't know if anyone else can see that, but same location, slightly different composition. Sunrise. And that's looking back towards one of the campgrounds. You can sort of see in the background there, there's some camp vehicles, I think, there. But yeah, very, very accessible. This is one of my favourite shots of the area, actually. I really like this. And I think I've got another shot of it that I took recently in very moody sort of light. I pretty much copied the same composition and just thought I'd give it a go. I'll try and get out of that. Let's see if I can get some others from you, but I'll try and find that one first. So that's yeah. So that's taken a very sort of misty morning. It wasn't raining, but there was really low cloud. So it was quite a different morning, but you can see that you still get, even if there isn't any great light, you can still get some really nice shots from the area.
It's definitely one of those sort of places you can just wander around and make your own shots. It's the photographer's playground, really.
Yeah, absolutely. You can't go wrong. This is my same morning. I don't know if anyone can see what I'm seeing there, but that's what I shot. Yeah, this is the same morning as well, just taken up on a bit of a high spot. Yeah, again, just that moody, misty sort of morning that it was.
Did you just wander around looking for genitalia, or does it just sort of come to you? What's the process?
Oh, you had to say it like
You're talking about this shot, of course.
Yeah, you've got a knack for it, though. That's the thing.
I just see it.
I've had very sensual erotic photos.
Yeah, I just see it, and it's become a bit of a joke for me, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, Peter Dombrovskis was pretty active in doing that himself. So
yeah, and it's mentioned in the documentary Wildness. His wife Liz mentions about the sort of shapes, and there's examples of that there. And I guess I took some inspiration from that in terms of, there are quite a few shapes like that, but it makes you, it actually gives you a different perspective on how you see things. But with the not so much the granite like this, but particularly the dolerite, you get lots of interesting shapes, and also the sandstone gives you a lot of female shapes and that sort of thing as well. And I just see them and I go, I better photograph that. And it's become a bit of a running joke, to be honest.
I'm gonna have to release a book of it.
Yeah, great. Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, I don't think I'll do that.
Cracks of Tasmania or something like that.
Yeah, I do have a few shots just from up at Deep Creek. So, so this is just obviously a long exposure shot. I managed to bore my daughter to death while I took this shot. I said, come with me and we'll go and do some photography. And she was enthusiastic for about 3 minutes. And then I set this shot up and took several long exposures and pretty much wore out my welcome. But it was worthwhile.
Definitely a great spot for long exposures. A lot of these sort of spots.
Yeah, and this is at Deep Creek as well. The rising moon there. I think my daughter had given up by this time, but I was pretty happy with that shot, actually. It's one of my favourites from the area. And while we're talking about Deep Creek, actually there's a couple more I'll show them in a sec. But this was just a detail from the beach there. Saw a bit of a fish in the kelp and took the photo. And then
almost like a marsupial sort of creature with its feet crossed in the bottom and long tail and pointed nose and ears on the left.
Yeah. Actually, I'd never seen it that way. I'd seen it more like a tripod fish that's walking along the bottom of the deep sea. I don't know if you've seen those type of fish. They've got the legs at the bottom and weird looking features, or one of those anglerfish or something like that. With you got your little light here. That's what I saw in it. But I see what you're saying.
I don't know what. Yeah.
But everyone sees different things. Back to Larapuna Edison Point. This is the lighthouse, and obviously taken with the Milky Way. It's a great spot to shoot the Milky Way if you're there at the right time of year. Just endless compositions. Probably rising Milky Way, you'd want to be there sort of March, April, I suppose, to get some decent stuff coming out of the water. This was a bit later. This would have been May, I reckon.
It probably would have been August or something like that to have to look straight up.
It might have been. I can't remember. I'd have to look at my things. But so this is get rid of that again. How did I get rid of that before? Yeah. Anyway, so there's some great compositions you can get from the area just to the north of the lighthouse, which pretty cool.
I found there's a lot of mosquitoes around that area. I don't know if you've found that, but you do get lots of mosquitoes up in that area. The Deep Creek campsite can be a bit mosquito-y, but anywhere coastal, when it gets a bit warmer, you're going to get that sort of thing anywhere in Australia. So it's not really that bad by other places, but it's just worth always having a bit on hand, the area guard or what have you.
Sunset, Nick?
Sunrise.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong angle.
I'm looking north to south. I'm sort of looking east.
Look how calm it was, the water.
Yeah, I reckon it was August actually, because the sun's a long way to the northeast. Because I'm really looking southeast with this photo.
Yeah. You would have had to for you to have to look up like that. It would have the Milky Way time would have been around then. Yeah, that's when you need to. When the Milky Way is already quite high in the sky by August, and so you really have to look up to get the Milky Way in the shot.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it would have been about 11 o'clock at night too, from memory, because I wasn't going to go out.
You probably just press I actually, and it'll probably bring up all of that information.
Yeah, right. You're not wrong. Of course, I could do that.
Oh, May. There you go.
May, but let's have a look at this one. Yeah.
Oh, May.
Yeah. So that was taken at
midnight. Okay. 12. So it's already risen quite a fair way. By the time you got to it.
And then I got up for sunrise the next morning. I think it might be an hour. This might be an hour out actually. I reckon it's an hour back. I reckon that's 11. 10 past 7.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Probably didn't correct it for daylight savings.
Yeah, it didn't put it back. Yeah. No, it would have been 7:30. It wouldn't have.
Amazing.
That wouldn't have been 8.
Very rarely see it that calm there, I would have thought.
Yeah, no, it was a beautiful morning. But yes, I was quite tired because I'd been out late shooting the stuff, and then got up again for sunrise. But the things you do, a couple more from the Bay of Fires, just to show the variety of things that you can shoot just looking away from the sea there. I don't know, I liked it. Again, just a study of rock with that. And then there's a cool place. I've got trying to see the darkened shot. You got this cool place called Grant's Point, where you've got this cool rock there. And I
how's that for a foreground?
Got there a couple of times. Yeah, I just it looked like a big eye. And that's actually a smashed crab in the middle there.
All right.
So, but the salt water is sort of, and the rain pool is mixed in, and then you've got this salt crust that's produced there as well, and then you've got this little crab in the middle that's been eaten by a bird. You'll find this stuff if you just look around. That's the same area.
Usually involves getting pretty wet to get out to that spot.
That's a magnificent composition, Nick.
Is it? All right. Okay. Yeah, no, it's not too bad there. I didn't find that, but I could have been there at low tide.
Tide, yeah.
There's some there too. You just went past.
Oh yeah, this one as well.
Yeah.
So that's the same rock formation. So that is a
that's
lower
a different
tide.
rock formation, I think, isn't it? It's different.
Let me look.
I call that Sphinx Rock. That one.
There?
Yeah.
There you go. You got a name for it.
That's what I call it.
Yes, it is a different.
I named it. Yeah.
It is a different rock formation just off to the left of the photo that you're looking at now.
Yeah.
But you can get some cool stuff in there.
I've got a few shots of that as well. Yeah.
It's a lovely spot there. Actually, Wolfgang Glowacki's got some really good shots from that location. He's
absolutely
some really top stuff. He's got I think I've mentioned before, but he's got a gallery in St Helens, and I highly recommend going in there and having a look at his work. And yeah, he's got
I went to visit him about a month ago up there. Had a good chat.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, it's a really.
He's based there for quite a few years now, so he really is the man on the ground up there for the last few years in particular.
Yeah. This was up. That's Picnic Rocks. So that's what I was talking about, just north of Larapuna, and just south of the Deep Creek campsite. Great spot. You can't go wrong there. It's just a beautiful spot to take photographs. The tide makes a difference as to how far you can get out close to these rocks. If it's high tide, you might have a bit of a harder time. What should I show? Oh, Bridport. So that's the old pier. Obviously a long exposure, bit of a minimalist thing. But easy to take some nice shots there. And then the same night, I was very lucky. I didn't know the moon was rising there, and I took this shot.
Such a good shot.
I suddenly just saw it peaking up, and I went, oh man, that's right now, full moon. And I was able to. I was only there. I was there with my family on a camping trip, and so I was just very lucky to be there on the day the full moon rose. There was actually a bit of smoke from a burn off in St Helens that went wrong. And so there was a bit of smoke lingering in the air, which gave the moon a bit more of an orange tinge than it normally would. But
you knew exactly where to put it. It's the main thing.
Well, yeah. Once I saw where it was rising, I just sort of manoeuvred myself off to the side. So you can't tell from here, but off to the left, you've got the beach fairly close by. So I've moved off to the left and then shot through these pillars here on the left there, and that's what I've ended up with. I mean, there are lots of old jetties like this around Australia, but I think the Bridport one's one of the special ones. Definitely worth a look.
It's quite long too. Must have been quite an impressive jetty at its time.
Yeah, it was it goes a long way out. You're right. Yeah. These are up in the Bridport area. Shot very recently. There's some sand dunes in the area that are worth exploring. I came across this fence in the sand dunes, which was pretty cool.
It's really cool.
And there'd been a bit of water around the same sand dunes. This is freshwater beach, really. And there were actually this was full of tadpoles in here. And around the edges of this, the water was starting to recede because it had lots of rain, and it was just obviously, sort of going into the ground and evaporating. And the poor tadpoles, some of them were getting stranded on the edge and dying. But I guess it's the circle of life. But it was interesting to see. What should we talk about now? We'll talk about the couple of waterfalls I mentioned.
Let's go inland.
Yeah, so Halls Falls near Pongana, or not near Gould's Country. They're a very photogenic set of waterfalls. If you want to get some
couple of k's walk in, isn't it?
It'd be maybe a bit over a k and a half. Maybe it's pretty flat the whole way until you get to the where the waterfall is, and then you've got to go down some steps and stuff to get to the base. But it's pretty easy going for families. If
I really want to get in there. I've never been in there.
Oh, have you? Oh, no,
Yeah.
it's a lovely spot.
Yeah, no, it's good. It's just
I do recommend taking gum boots or waders, or just taking your shoes off and getting in the creek, because you couldn't have shot this shot without getting wet feet. It's quite a difficult shot to get without wet feet. Not that I'm suggesting everyone should go and take my photo, but yeah, there's tons of rocks back from that are accessible without getting wet feet. So there are lots of different compositions you can try. This is just one I took and had to get in the creek to get. But
Dylan Toe's got a really great shot of it. He does really good work from there.
Yeah. Dylan, he shot that maybe 10 years ago. On a trip to Tassie, and it's a really great shot. Quite a very long exposure. He must have. I think it was probably fairly late in the day or early in the day that he took it, with also a long exposure filter or something. But it's a really beautiful shot, and a much better shot than mine, but really nice. This is Waterfalls, which are definitely worth going to. You wouldn't class them more as northeast and more. It's really the southern part of the northeast, and you'd head there from, if you're going from St Mary's and Fingal back through to the Midlands Highway, or you can go over the top from Ringarooma or Ralph's Falls area to this area. It's a multi-tiered waterfall. This is the bottom tier. Actually, no, I think this is the middle tier. Yeah, this is the middle tier, and this is that's the bottom tiers on the left, and this is like a semi-middle tier, but the actual middle tier I'm talking about is further to the right. It can be a bit treacherous getting up to the other tiers, so just be wary of that. It's not the easiest walk up the side, but if you're sure of foot, you should be okay. Another area, so we'll go to the blue tier, and actually there's a couple of shots I didn't put in from the blue tier. This is an area called Mount Michael, which is up the top of the blue tier. Great walk. It's a very easy walk in terms of length of time. It goes through some pretty nice myrtle rainforest at the start of the walk, and then suddenly you come out of that onto the granite tops, and it's got some great formations up there. It's often quite windy up there. This was taken on a really poor weather day, and but you can see the weathering in the granite that's happened on top of the mountain. On a nice day, you get views everywhere. You can see down to St Helens and across to Mount Victoria and Mount Albert and other areas of the Northeast Highlands. So it's a really worthwhile walk. It's one of the best little walks you can do in the Northeast up to Mount Michael. There's a lot of the blue tier has a lot of mining heritage as well. It was a tin mining area that was done. They had Chinese migrants were the main exponents of the tin mining in the Northeast, particularly in the blue tier and that sort of area back in the turn of the 20th century. So there's quite a lot of mining heritage up there, and some interesting artifacts that have been left behind, and you can see the sluices that they made and some of the mines themselves. There's actually a mine off the back of Mount Michael that you can see. There's another one on top of Australia Hill, which is another small hill in the area, which is worth a walk. But I prefer it for the trees and the granite formations and stuff, as opposed to the mining heritage. But it is of interest, even if you're not really into mining heritage itself. It's just an interesting area. One of the other features up there that you'll notice straight away as a photographer is you get these carpets of it's sort of a coral lichen. And this is a focus stacked image. There's about 30 photos focus stacked in this. And if you're into macro work and you like the look of this coral lichen, you'll fall in love with the blue tear very quickly, because you'll see this almost immediately as you start taking a little walk here and there once you leave your car. And, it's definitely a worthwhile thing. It's another focus stacked image. Obviously, I haven't fully focus stacked the back. I'll probably zoom in a little bit. I didn't do the full res here, but you can see there's actually little tea trees. This is actually a little tea tree here that's growing out, and the coral lichen's clumped on the edge of the tea tree. And you can see just the different patterns in it. I mean, it's ridiculous. It's just amazing structures. So if you're into macro and fungi sort of photography, then I reckon you'll spend most of your time shooting that stuff. It's pretty cool. Got a lot more from the blue tear. These are areas that if you look around the general blue tear area, you might find. I'm not giving away locations of the forested areas as such. There's a great lot that you can see off the back of Mount Michael, and if you go along another track that heads away from Mount Michael, that Mount Michael track branches off, you can see a lot of this sort of area. But some of the areas I'm showing you are fully off track, and as a result of exploring. So I'm not really going to promote where they are because you might get lost if you don't know where you're going. But this is obviously my background tonight as well. Just magnificent forests. Thankfully, haven't been touched by the loggers, but it's always a chance, I suppose. You've seen this one before, again on the blue tier.
Like, how do you pick the misty weather? Like, what's the cue to let you know it's going to be there?
Well, going there at the right time of year. So generally May, June, and I tend to take holidays from work about then, because you get this sort of weather. And so most of these trips to the northeast I've done in about 5 or 6 day lots. So I've gone up there and camped in the area for 5 or 6 days, and then I just follow the weather. So if it's going to be, if there's a chance it might be a bit misty, if the clouds are rolling in, because you're talking over 800 meters above sea level on the blue tier in this area. So if it looks like it's going to be misty, then I'll go up there and camp in that general area, and then get up really early in the morning, because it often burns off if it's not a totally misty day where it's going to be misty all day. You'll get stuff in the morning. So I'll get up really early and then just head to the areas that I know have these beautiful trees. And I've done that a couple of times and it's been successful. A lot of the time though, I'm shooting, this was, there was one trip I did into this area that it rained a lot. And so I got really, really wet. But you had that sort of mist created by the rain. But yeah, it was worthwhile, but very, very wet to do so. So you've got to be prepared. But yeah, I just pick the weather, and if it's going to be a nice sunny day with a nice sunrise, then I'll camp down near the coast. And so when I go away for these trips, I really look at the weather closely and then pick where I'm going to go based on what's presenting. And the northeast is great for that, because and the Tscharke and northwest are very similar in this regard, that you can base yourself somewhere and then go to different places based on what the weather's doing. So if it's a crap day, I might go and shoot a waterfall. If it's going to be a nice sunrise, I'll go to the coast. If it's going to be misty, I'll head up into the hills. That's just how I tend to plan things. Yeah, it tends to work out. It doesn't always work out, but it tends to work out reasonably.
Well, it's beautiful tonal range in that last image, Nick. Just really.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, I've never posted that one. I've stayed off on that one. It's a bit different, and I really like it. And then I don't. I look at it and I don't like it, and then I look at it and I think, oh yeah.
Oh, it's one of my favorites.
Right. Yeah, cool. I'm glad
Bringing out that mixture of circular flow and graphic square at the same time is an unusual combination.
Yeah, I'm glad you like it, Paul. Actually, I'm pleased you said that, because like I said, I haven't actually shown that photo before, so it's sitting there ready to be shown, but I've never actually put it out.
But yeah, the subtlety of the tonal range in two is really, really striking.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah, obviously, they're both taken in the same location. The sun was sort of popping in and out, so I got some different light depending on what was happening. These are focus stacked images.
I was going to say, they focus stacked, I was wondering.
Yeah. This was when it was really pissing with rain. You can tell it's not that light mist, it's that rainy mist in the background there. Yeah, some beautiful trees and areas up that way. And yeah, so that's, it's sort of the blue tier area. I did, I'll put it in here somewhere. Oh, this was from a few years back. I found this love heart.
Oh, yeah, right.
In the forest. So this is just off the Mount Michael walk. So it's in that general area. I just love this little love heart. And I've just called this one Love the Blue Tear. But yeah, I might reprocess that actually. I'm seeing some issues. But yeah, it's just great. I just love being up there. And it's also a bit sad because there is a lot of logging that's happening that's eating into these sort of areas. I'm not saying these particular areas are in any danger of being logged, but there are similar areas that are under threat, particularly around Wellborough and the Derby area at the moment, where they've got the famous mountain biking, and there's a real push to have those areas left alone. But the government seems to think that you can have wonderful mountain biking tracks and just have a veil of 10 metres of forest between the track and the clearfell behind it, and just not compatible in my opinion. The Wellborough Pass, the area between the Blue Tier and Wellborough is a windy sort of drive, and you can get some great mist through there just off the side of the road, which this one is, if you go there at the right time. There aren't too many places you can pull over, so you just need to be careful if you do pull over. It can be a busy road, relatively busy. But there's some great, there's a great rainforest walk on the Wellborough Pass, which is suitable for everyone. Very flat,
it's beautiful
and accessible. And you get these great trees. There's some massive myrtles. So if you're not really into exploring deep into the forest, I definitely recommend the 15-minute Wellborough Pass rainforest walk. It's only probably 4 or 5 minutes east of Wellborough. You'll see it. There's a big sign. There's a car park on the side, and it's got interpretive signs that talk about the forest and in a bit of a story, actually, which is great for the kids.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too, though, Nick. It's well put together.
And it's actually got 2 or 3 really, really big myrtle trees, like some of the biggest that you'll see on that walk. It's quite impressive. And you get these interactions between the different species. You can see here the sassafras tree and the tree fern, sort of growing together. And I've got other examples of it where the trees are almost one organism. They're so intertwined and growing off each other. I can't remember. It starts with E, the word where they sort of live in harmony.
Epiphytes.
Epiphytes, yeah, that a bit. Yep. There's a lot of examples of epiphytes on that walk, and even on the other side of the car park, on the other side from the walk, if you're just stuck into the forest there, you'll see. And I think this one's on the opposite side of the road, actually. So you don't have to go far to see some really beautiful things that are very accessible for everyone.
It's 9:05.
Right, okay. Very quickly. This is another area, Mount Victoria Forest Reserve, very big forest reserve. It's got multiple areas you can access it from. The most accessible area for most people is where Ralph Falls is, which is one of Tasmania's 60 great short walks. This isn't from that particular area, but there are sites very similar to this in that area. It's just great shot, great place to explore in general. It's very, very large. I did camp in the middle of the forest once with my stupid red tent, and yeah, really, really beautiful. Got some off there. Some other, yeah. So again, huge myrtles, ferns. I think I've shown this one before. It's got the snake in the background, which I didn't know about until after I moved off from the shot. It's not a high-res shot, but there's a snake.
Oh, those two, yeah.
Right there. It was really dry up there when I went on this particular trip, and I was quite surprised to see a snake in there, but there it was, and it scared the absolute crap out of me because, like I said, I shot this, I didn't know it was there, and then I moved sort of around the side, and it moved too. So I was like, again, this is actually near Ralph Falls, so you can see this near the track. Just great, beautiful ferns in there. And this is Ralph Falls itself, a wider shot taken at sunset. I was quite surprised that I could get the light on the cliff there. I didn't realise until that particular day that I could. You won't get that in summer. This is more a winter shot, I think. The sun won't hit it directly. But Ralph Falls is that little slit there. It's quite a spectacular fall, and there's actually a track that goes round up on this cliff line here, so you can get quite close to the top, but there's not much to see at the top except a large faulty of death. It's just another shot that's near St Columba Falls. Some beautiful little pockets in there. And I just wanted to show before I finish. This is a different area I've found recently. I don't normally see wattles like this, but it's almost an English countryside looking scene. But yeah, silver wattles with this beautiful moss lichen coming off it. Just great. But you'll find these areas if you have a look around. This is Perrin Dunes near St Helens. And Mount Victoria itself is a worthwhile walk. If you can walk into the mountains, you're capable of doing it, then it's worth going. It's just some great rock formations of dolerite up there. Definitely worth a look. Mathina Plains up the top near Mount Victoria started the walk. You get some beautiful wildflowers, and we might leave it at that because Mount Paris Dam. I'll put that there. Paul, you're about to talk about this, aren't you?
Yeah, I got a few from there.
Yeah, I just quickly tell the story of this image. I saw. I was made aware of this area from just a random Facebook post from someone that wasn't a photographer. They just put a photo of this place and it looked really intriguing. So I think it must have been 2015. I went up there and found it. It wasn't easy to find actually because there weren't signs in place like there are now. And it's off Mount Paris Dam Road, which leads from Wellborough. It's not a particularly sensitive place and it is well visited now. But this image I'd never seen a photo from here, like a proper photo from here. I'm not saying I was the first to take a proper photo there. I'm sure I'm not. But this image actually went quite viral, and it was a bit of a lesson to me in how how you can influence the discovery of locations in this modern sort of social media age, because I'm pretty sure that this probably inspired quite a few photographers up there to go and visit not long after I took this photo. And obviously their photos from there were also shared, and then it snowballed and become very well-known location. And Paul's got a couple of beautiful photos from there. But I just thought I'd chuck this one in. This was the original viral shot of mine that I think made.
In a way, it's so easy to shoot there, leave no trace, because you can literally just stay on the rocks the entire time and not touch any foliage.
Also had plenty of impact by man there, obviously.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it's a dam that there used to be on the other side of this wall, a substantial dam. I can't remember right now off the top of my head the story, but in the end, they decommissioned the dam by punching a couple of holes through the wall and allowed the Cascade River, which is what this is called, to flow naturally through the openings. And so you get this, it's almost it's I can't think of the word, but it's like almost a decay sort of, not an urban decay sort of shot, but
industrial,
that in industrial meets nature sort of thing that you get from abandoned places. And I think that's clearly that's what inspires people to go there. It is worth going. I definitely recommend it. The rocks are very, very slippery here as well, so be very careful. There are more cascades further down the stream from this shot that are worth shooting. Yeah, but I'll stop sharing now because I've taken up far too much time. Although I've probably got more images than most. But are you ready to go, Paulie?
Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's see, I'll just share screen. So quite interestingly, it's quite convenient for me that there's not much time, because I'm still having computer issues, and I only managed to get photos from my very, very last trip up there, which was actually only a few weeks ago. Well, probably a month ago now, just over. And in the first place, I went on a 6-day mountain bike trip to Derby, and which is one of my favorite places in the known universe. And I extended the trip a few days to go and shoot. And I literally almost right. Yeah, the light was beautiful. It was one of those sort of light, soft, overcast days, no one around. Still fairly wintry and a bit of water flowing around. And so I only just quickly whipped over these, but this will give you a good sort of storytelling of what you're sort of got to look at Mount Paris Dam from a variety of positions, and lower and higher and wider and longer and man-made or less man-made. It's quite a dynamic place to just slow down and shoot. And it's quite a treat to just have it to myself. I mean, it's actually quite popular. There was actually tourists and all sorts of people popping down to say good day. So I ended up sort of moving a little bit further down as a result of that, and I just managed to shoot by myself. But yeah, any sort of overcast lighting is going to suit. It's probably not quite a bright day sort of area to shoot. Playing around with a bit of ICM just for kicks. But you can see the amount of variety just in a few steps. Actually, literally all those photographs are just within like 3 steps of each other so far. But that's starting to move a little bit further down, sort of giving those parallels with the trees and the verticals of that. Sorry, my computer, this 10-year-old computer is so old it can't even load my photographs in time to go sharp. But anyway,
wow.
This is actually on the way into Columba. I just went down a side road and found a bridge and went for a walk.
Yeah, that's a beautiful area.
Yeah, I won't say where, but I just I had a ball down here, and I ended up spending about 3 hours down here.
Isn't it amazing how quickly you can get lost in an area like that? It's just
yeah. I was just
wow, look at that.
I was just like, man, there's no one here, and I bet not that many people have even shot down this little area. Maybe the odd ones, beautiful color, good variety, and it got more and more interesting as I got down to this this corner here. I ended up climbing up, sort of running off.
Yeah, I haven't been past that corner. It's quite treacherous past it, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, it was getting dark by then, and my whole idea was actually to go and shoot in Columba Falls or have a crack at it anyway. And by the time I got to Columba, it was basically dark. Close to it.
I think you did it right, Paul. To be honest, I think you've done the right thing and explored. Yeah,
made your own shots.
Yeah.
And I thought I never actually seen shots from there, so it's interesting to hear that you've been there too, Nick. So I ended up getting down to the falls just really, really late, so starting to get like almost too hard to shoot by hand. But it had this lovely soft late moody, kind of misty feel to it, which I thoroughly enjoyed, actually. I was like, oh, am I too late to even bother going down there? I ended up walking down there anyway, basically on dark, and just got what I could with some really long exposures. But nobody there, not a soul. Been raining sort of through the afternoon for a day or two, and so
Love the mist.
So much mist in the air.
Well, they're taken from that just the car park there, aren't they? That lookout.
Actually, I'm literally
Wow.
leaning over my car.
Yeah.
It's kind of a bit of a narrow window. I had to shoot with a little bit of a telephoto to get the shot, but it was not hard to get some mood in your shots. I'll tell you.
Yeah, no, you've done what I suggested, Paul. You went at the end of the day. I think that it shows quite clearly that it's a good time to go.
Yeah. I was really happy to have it to myself.
So much mood.
Yeah, it's just again, that's just in the car park, just shooting up. And that's the beauty of shots like this. No one needs to know that.
It sounds like you've done all your exploring already, so you didn't really have,
I was just on the phone. I've done that 3 hours in that little corner there, which I never even really thought of. Spending time out. That's probably my favourite one. Colour black and white. Take a picture.
I think that's probably one thing about the whole area in the northeast, especially when you go into the interior, is it's not as well photographed. So it's quite easy just to sort of wander around and take these photos that probably haven't been shot that much. So it's
basically shooting in the dark at 30-second exposures, but it was almost no wind, so I managed to get away with it. But I was getting a little bit. The camera almost couldn't focus anymore, so I was pushing it a little bit. But it's quite lovely little systems down there to spend time with, and it was worth just lugging it down for that extra sort of 20 minutes of mucking around down here.
Wow. So this is all around Columbia, or this is the other area?
Yeah, it's all around Columbia. Yeah. And I did manage to get one shot of Columbia Falls. That's it there.
Well, that's a brilliant shot. Well done. that actually, that shows it really well.
Is that at 12 mil or is that 16?
Yeah, that's the thank Lukey for lining this 12 mil lens.
That's why. Right.
Superly long period of time where I shouldn't have, but there you go, Lukey. That's me putting it to use, my friend.
No, that's good. Glad it's coming.
Why you get a shot like that, and literally you had about 1 second before the entire lens is just filled with mist and water. So every single time you take a shot, you had to clean and line it up.
What does that look like in colour?
What's that?
What was it like in colour? I can imagine it's still pretty specky.
It's basically dark. So
okay, it'll be all that blue sort of.
Just to give some people some perspective, that is 100-metre high waterfall.
Wow.
It's a huge waterfall, and to see it all in one shot with the 12 mil makes it look a lot smaller than it really is. You'll know if you've been there what I mean. But yeah, again, you couldn't take this during the day because you just get blared out sky above the waterfall, and so to go really late like Paul did makes a lot of sense, and it shows. It's a really great. I love that curve. That's beautiful.
You're leaning over a platform here where there's people going to be walking on it and making vibrations as well. So having no one there is a real advantage.
I'll have to go there with my Lauer 9mm. That'd be interesting.
Show us all up, Lucy. I like it. There was some that night. I actually drove all the way out from there to Sleep Reef, is it?
Yep, Sleep Reef, yep.
So last camp's not my favourite because it has access to actually a surf beach, which is just over the hill, and I did find it pretty hard to get the because to the naked eye that was actually almost more impressive than through the camera. A little bit of light painting in the foreground there, but that's literally I woke up and that's my view.
Yeah.
Long exposures in the Bay of Fires. It's a great spot for it.
It's me, but yeah, that's literally 10 stop during the day. For the it was pretty misty and overcast in the morning, so I didn't shoot, and I thought, I'll just poke around with some field design during the day, and I actually quite enjoyed doing that around there. Although Nick's inspired me to do that more on those moody days because, geez, I love some of the shots you got on it. But that's literally basically from out the front of my tent as well in the other direction.
Yep.
And even when it's busy, if you've got a little single one-person pup tent, I know little spots in there I can go in, even if it's peak of anything, and just turn up at midnight and just walk to and set up.
Yep.
And
I think
most people are big car campers, and they're not really set up for like bushwalking, top tent type things.
I think Sloop Reef is a good spot for sunset for Bay of Fires, because most of obviously the beaches face east, but that you sort of are looking more north to northwest at Sloop Reef when you're looking at those angles. So it's one thing I've identified.
Yeah, you can actually take a road and go to a car park around about the top here and just walk all around the front of this section, which
Yep.
which about to sort of go to. But yeah, it's kind of a curious feel. I'm still trying to decide how I feel about sort of midday or daytime long exposures. There's certainly a point of difference.
I love them.
It's a little bit technique orientated though, like in terms of,
It's got a nice contrast between the starkness of the rock and the softness of the water as well. Yeah. That's that little plunge pool.
There's a little pool down there, which I won't say exactly where it is, but you can have fun trying to find it. And you can literally jump off here. A lot of kids do sometimes, off the little ledge here down at the bottom. And depending on the tide, that's actually a fair way above the water at a low tide. High tide, the waves start washing it over the top. It's a nice little spot to go to. So that's moving around the same place, just moving around to the southern sort of side a little bit more. I camped at Cozy Corner, just in the northern campsite, which is one of the most popular spots, but for good reason. Like you've got access to this entire area, like just within like a couple of minutes walk, and it's the classic spot. And again, there's good reason for that. It's probably a little bit challenging to get compositions that haven't been done, but at the same time, if you haven't seen what's been done, you'll just have a field day. And it's a nice little.
And the ones that have been done, they're still lovely to do yourself. I don't have a problem.
I've never not enjoyed shooting there, and especially during winter. I was at COVID. There wasn't many people about.
I reckon it'd be my pick of the whole area, Cozy Corner.
I think it's got the most variety and some of the more classic kind of compositions. I'm a little bit more inspired to get up to sort of Edison Deep Creek Bay again, because I've been up there for a while.
That's where I took one of my shots from.
Yeah, and it's a little bit about the tide and the waves here. I like it when it's offshore, so the water's just sort of a little bit.
That's one of the more classic angles. The water's quite a fair way up there. I've never seen it so much water in there.
Rock face here. Yeah, I got lucky with the light. It was kind of subdued. Where I was going to go, and this lovely soft warm.
Fantastic.
Look at
that. It's definitely high tide.
Yeah, but it's like there's some sand missing as well, because I've been there at high tide, and this just the water's got nowhere near that height. So interesting.
Line figures. Thank you very much. You just stay still during my 10-second exposure. Thanks, mate.
Well, better get on with Lukey too. So I took up too much time. Sorry, guys.
That's all right.
That's all right. We should have made it clear at the start when our break points were.
Yeah.
I don't have too much more to go anyway, I don't think. But yeah, don't be shy. Spending some time around here. Sunrise is generally the best time for this spot for sure. But again, if you want to do some daytime long exposures, it's a pretty good option as well. You get lucky with some reflections down lower, and lots of different, depending on what rocks you want to jump on and how good you are at sort of jumping between waves to get on things. I've had to jump between a few waves to get on that one. Pockets of light.
Well, you've almost found every possible angle in that place, Paul.
I had a good go, and I'm still shooting a little bit later with the light up and the moody light as well, and having a little bit of fun. This is probably another 10 minutes sort of around the corner on this another big sort of rock area, which is where we're sort of climbing up to.
There's my ladies lying down.
Oh yeah, there it is. Yeah.
Oh yeah. I love it up there.
Yeah.
And it's just then I was surf hunting, and I managed to get down to absolutely pumping waves at Shelley Point, and I just managed to take one or two before got the hell out there and surf my brains out. Anyway, that'll do me.
All right, mate.
So beautiful. That was shot within probably 36 hours, I think.
Oh, really? There you go. All right. So,
6 days mountain biking, 36 hours shooting.
Can you ever see my screen at all?
Oh, yes, we can. And I want
so one of my favourite spots in the northeast is Bridestowe Lavender Estate, which is very popular with photographers for very good reason. I think it's the Southern Hemisphere's largest lavender farm, and it only really goes full on for about, the peak flowering, I should say, is generally just before New Year's and just after New Year's. So you kind of got a 2-week window. It does move around depending on how the season's going. I reckon from what I've seen, it's probably going to be a bit of a later season this year, but it's hard to pick. So, and you have to get the timing right. You can even see in this image here that some of these rows have already been harvested. Thankfully, this is probably one of the better years actually, in terms of the cover. And also what's happened more recently is these rows that sort of lead off in this way actually got replaced. And so the last few years, this particular scene has looked nowhere near as impressive. And for me, this is probably the ultimate composition, because you've got the lines leading into this beautiful oak tree that sort of sits in the center of the lavender field. But there's plenty of shots you can make. Another classic one is more of the longer shot looking towards the distant mountains, using the the rows themselves as like leading lines, just looking in towards the back. But you can also shoot across the rows and get beautiful shots. This is a sunrise shot with the sun coming up out past the oak tree there. And that can also be pretty specky. And it's a pretty good spot for both sunrise and sunset, really. I think it works both ways. This is another sunrise one here, and this is actually sunset. So we're very lucky to get a pretty extreme condition, or just a crazy sunset where it just decided to light up and come across the field like this. And OzGeo actually used this one as a jigsaw puzzle recently, so that was pretty cool.
What's the deal with access here?
It's so accessing. So the lavender is actually very accessible by photographers during the day. It's open to the public. I believe there's a fee to enter. I can't quite remember. It'll be on their website for sure. The reason I can't remember is because I actually call up and get permission to go in after hours, and that's really the trick to it. Because when you go after hours, it's only really photographers that are there. The Lavender Farm are very smart and savvy with social media. It's why it's become so popular. And so they're very good at allowing permission for photographers, because they know that they're going to end up on social media and people are going to froth on it, and more people are going to come. They're also open to flying drones as well, which is also pretty cool. Which you don't often get. So I have to also bear in mind that other people will be probably flying at the same time. But if you're lucky, there mightn't be that many other photographers there during the time you're there. If you're unlucky, that you could be very, very busy. So it's just about working with each other when it comes to that. Generally, much less people there at sunrise than at sunset. And I really think sunrise is the pick out of the two, just to get these sort of shots. I think is much nicer. Getting the light sort of coming across the rows from this side is really nice, but it does work either way for me. I think that's the drone one, just looking down the top of the rows. So yeah, definitely well worth looking at. Did some astro there as well. Sort of a south facing location, so if you're lucky enough to get Aurora, it would be quite an interesting place for Aurora as well. Obviously still needing to get permission to be there that late. Bearing in mind that this is essentially photographing around the summer solstice, so you're going to get only dark skies probably after 11 p.m. and probably start getting light at 4 a.m. or something. So you've only got a very small window actually where you can have dark enough skies to see the aurora. You can already see, even in this image, the light of sunrise coming through the bottom here. So yeah, definitely it's a bit of a challenge when it comes to night photography there, to be honest. So that's sort of Bridestowe. I've got if you go to my website, I've got quite a big album. I've photographed it for Tourism Tasmania, and so there's plenty of shots there if you're interested in seeing more about Bridestowe. And I'm also looking to run very small 2-people workshops at Bridestowe this year. So if you are interested in having someone show you around Bridestowe for the flowering, I'm very happy to take you around, and then we can pop down to Bay of Fires and shoot there during the day as well, or some additional days. So feel free to get in touch if you want me to help you out with that. I think
Wukalina?
Hey?
Wukalina walk?
Yeah, well, look, I've got a couple other shots from around the place. I think I'd like to finish on Wukalina. This is just going to be really scattergun. So just quickly go through the shots that I have here. First of all, I'll just do some Bay of Fires stuff. Just, and it has been done a fair bit, but as I mentioned, I really do enjoy these long exposures like Paul was doing as well. Can't go through this show without at least reflecting on the tree, the tree that was the Bay of Fires Bennelong Bay tree. And yeah, it has been a favorite of mine. So I was obviously of a different opinion when it disappeared versus what Nick, aka Bar Humbug, Nick.
Look, it is a bit of an ongoing joke, and I don't think everyone got the joke that I was alluding to, but people were grieving, so I do understand. But those that know me for a long time know that there's been a very long ongoing joke with this tree.
Yeah, and it's pretty. I was able to get a drone permit recently to fly there too. It's quite a spectacular area from above as well.
And you do need a permit, don't you?
You definitely need a permit there because it's conservation land, so it's parks managed land. So that's actually Sloop Reef there, a whole bunch of people there. So yeah, drone permit for all of these. But yeah, it's a magic spot. You can see the car park there. It's a really nice little area to go camping at Sloop Reef. Larapuna, so got a few shots from there. There's actually a really nice little island area out further past the lighthouse that can give some quite nice photos and has some really nice sort of formations in the foreground.
Hey? Is that from our last trip up there?
I think it might be, yeah. One of the trips. Another favorite spot in the northeast, or that's more for Instagrammers, but it's the Little Blue Lake. This is a vertical panorama to fit it all in. But yeah, it's, you know, Instagrammers love it. It's kind of already got that beautiful teal sort of color that they like having in their orange and teal pictures. Yeah, but
very orange and teal.
Definitely nice to have your own take on a place like that. But it's an old sort of residual. I think it's what copper sulfate or something that's caused that bluey color. It's very vibrant, quite an interesting place. But yeah, it's not particularly natural or anything like that. But it's always worth a bit of a look if you just happen to be going past. Mount Paris Dam, I've got a few there too. Really, really pretty places, as those guys have said. You know, sort of a place that you can keep coming back to and probably get all sorts of different stuff there. I had quite a good amount of flow when I was there, so that was more recently. See the odd platypus around the place. There's a accommodation up in Bridport where they actually have a platypus in a dam, so you can actually stalk it and get some shots of it. Probably one of the better ones I got, but you know, if you had patience and a lot of time, you could probably get some pretty awesome stuff from there. Just a few general Bay of Fires images. Just to, you know, like I really like shooting towards the later part of the day where you're still getting a bit of glow on the rocks and that kind of thing. This is Cozy Corner here as well. Now and then Bridport as well. I was more recently, I actually got some waders on and went right in and got some pretty cool shots, sort of like reflection shots and things.
That is cool.
Sort of right in close, which you know, it's a bit of a different perspective of Bridestowe than you'd be used to seeing. I also did a bit of ICM work up there as well. I found a plantation there that had some pretty cool pine trees, so played around with that.
That's excellent.
St. Helens jetties are probably worth a mention. Some really, really interesting and beautiful jetties around St. Helens in the estuary there. So definitely some good subjects, particularly for sunrise. If you're staying in St. Helens and don't want to have to venture too far, very well worth looking around for the jetties there. And then obviously going out a bit further and heading to was it Perrin Dunes is really quite an interesting place, and there was quite a lot, almost like sand sastrugi, like all of these carved formations in the sand from the wind. So that was pretty cool. This is one from Grant's Point as well, which is the Sphinx, and now those other two rocks, Nick, that you had in the other shot.
Yep.
Also did some work out at the Bay of Fires Lodge at the coast. This is actually the International Space Station coming over the top. I didn't even plan that. I got pretty lucky.
That's cool.
I planned the Milky Way being there and all of that, but yeah, I didn't expect the International Space Station to go right over my subject, which is the Bay of Fires Lodge. So that was pretty cool. And this cloud sort of decided to the star behind the cloud up, but it almost looks like it's the light of the lodge actually lighting the cloud up, which is kind of cool. So it's a bit more of the commercial stuff. So yeah, that's probably a few quick shots just from around the northeast. You can see that I haven't really done much of the interior. I haven't done a lot of the sort of greeny, more lush sort of stuff, which is definitely a gap in my portfolio that I'm keen to close, and certainly have a lot of inspiration from Nick. But one experience I did want to share was around the Wookaleena Walk, which is a guided Aboriginal experience. It's quite a amazing experience because you don't often get a chance to actually kind of be shown around by the Tasmanian Aboriginal community, and really have some insight into the way they used to live on the land essentially. This is looking through some bracken fern, and they used to actually eat the tips of the bracken. It sort of got a nutty taste to it. And yeah, just all sorts of different flowers are out at the time. There was some little rock orchids coming off of the side. This is actually at the summit of Wookaleena. So Mount William, the Aboriginal name is Wookaleena. I really wish it was called Wookaleena National Park rather than Mount William National Park. It's a much more beautiful name.
Yep.
So, but anyway, hopefully one day they'll get their act into gear. All sorts of interpretation was probably the best part about it in terms of understanding the different bush tucker and how they used to use fire management along the land. And now that the land isn't being actively managed with fire, it's definitely not in the same condition it used to. They actually use the moss that you're talking about as a kind of a water source, or gathering the water out of the moss and using that to in terms of hydration and that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's cool. Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, some like kangaroo, the grass trees are actually flowering, so I was able to get a few shots of that. Milkmaids and different things like that. So it was quite a varied environment. There's a lot of grass trees and like a sort of environment that I wasn't used to seeing in Tasmania. It was quite a bit drier, and the orchids were out and a bit of fungi and things like that. So there's quite a lot to look at, quite a lot to photograph. This is just on the first day, starting at Mount William and walking all the way through to their own sort of area on the start of it's just sort of south of Stumpy's Bay basically, but it's a pretty secluded area. There's nothing much out there, and in fact you really got a real feeling of wilderness out there. It was really quite nice actually, just to be so remote. This is the actual campsite. They've done a really amazing job in terms of creating a space.
That's cool.
And then they cook on the fire some mutton bird and some of the local Tasmanian produce like scallops and those kind of things. So that was actually a lot of fun doing some photographing just using the ambient light at night, which was a nice challenge, just to do that. And then of course a bit of astrophotography as well later luckily there was a clear night there, so I could do a bit of that as well, which was good fun. And just some more sort of walking through the coastline. This is a huge midden site behind here that we weren't actually allowed to photograph, but it was amazing to sort of have people on country actually show all the stone tools and be able to interpret things that were going on, making some of the musical items. And also they make these beautiful necklaces out of grand mariner shells or small mariner shells, absolutely stunning. So you can sort of get a bit of a feel for everything. There's a couple of my other favorites here
Gee, it looks like a worthwhile walk to do, Luke.
Oh, it's pretty amazing. It's really like as a photographer, it's got so much to offer, and you could walk it yourself and you would see certain things, but like to actually have, oh, this is a Grand Mariner shell here. They're quite large, and they would actually etch off the coating of that, and it has a really beautiful opalescent sort of look to it that they use, and then they put it in a pendant or something like that. So big giant.
You'd miss the interpretation though if you went by yourself.
Exactly, and that's why guided walks are always a great thing to do, because you really do get a much better sort of information about what you're looking at, and certainly having the cultural aspect to it. Like this is an acacia that they would use to clean their hands, and they can rub it and it sort of turns into a soap. So yeah, some more Grand Mariners there. This is a pretty stunning little spot with getting some like more conglomerate style rock with some tannin stained water going through as well. I really enjoyed photographing there. I love a good bit of creek on beach action. Yeah, so there's plenty to see along that whole coastline. So you basically start at Stumpy's Bay, right up the north, almost near Muscle Row Bay, and then you gradually walk all the way down, and this is Picnic Rocks, and then of course, like you've got Larapuna right at the end, which is Eddystone Point. In the whitefellow language, have a bit of a meal and some food as well down there, but yeah, you sort of end up right at there, and you actually do get to go inside the lighthouse too, which you don't normally get to do. And that was quite a cool experience, interesting stairwell inside and all of that. And all of the place to stay at the end. So yeah, so it was a pretty cool experience. I don't know if I explained it very well, but I think you can hopefully see from the pictures, like to cover a whole piece of coastline like that and see it in its entirety is quite an amazing experience, and to be looked after at the same time with good food and all of these sort of amazing experiences. It was a pretty cool assignment to have, so I'm very grateful for that. And there is a story about it in the Australian Geographics from earlier in the year. I think it came out in January or something like that. So yeah, there's definitely I mean, only a fraction of these images obviously made it into the story, so I don't think I've shown these before anywhere else. So
really lucky, actually, mate. That's beautiful documentary work. Well done.
Yeah, and like just the hall that you start in is pretty elaborate with all of the flags, and it felt like a pretty sort of sacred space to be sort of welcomed into from the very start. So in Launceston. So yeah. So anyway, thanks for letting me indulge in that experience. But it's certainly recommended if you're looking to do a walk in Tasmania that's a little bit different. The Wookalina walk's definitely a pretty cool option.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Right.
That's about it, I think.
Yeah, that's it for me. I think yeah, we'll probably wrap things up. We are a little bit over time as it is anyway. Now, what are we up to next week?
What date's next week?
Next week is the we've got Luke O'Brien on next week.
On the southwest.
He's a local Tasmanian photographer that's gets out and about and runs workshops and all sorts of things. So it'd be fantastic to have him on. He's been photographing in Tasmania since the year dot probably, and has a beautiful market stall in Salamanca. So it should be fantastic to have him on as well. So a bit more Tassie next week. And we've got a whole bunch of interesting guests lined up going after that, but we will just mention that our last show for the year will be on the 15th of December, and then we're going to have a little bit of a break. It's pretty normal for people to wrap up over Christmas and have a bit of a break, but we have just worked that out, so we'll just sort of mention that as well. Cool. All right, well, with that,
we've got a Secret Squirrel special guest from America. They won't say who that we're interviewing on Friday morning. So
yeah, pretty exciting. And then another international guest later on as well. So before the end of the year. So yeah, very exciting. So yeah, definitely keep in the loop and what's going on. And if you haven't subscribed to our mailing list, please do. It's on our Facebook page. I think if you go to subscribe.tlp.show, it will also take you to the mailing list sign up. And also, you know, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, it'd be really awesome if you wanted to, if you want to
it really helps.
tabs on what's going on in the show, and also don't forget to like the show as well. It's always nice to get some likes and help the algorithm help other people discover the content that we're putting out. So that's always great as well.
We're trying to get to 1,000. We're close.
Yeah, so tediously close, but anyway. All right, well, look, with that, we'll say good night. Thanks so much for joining us. We hope you really enjoyed exploring in the area up in the northeast that we all love so much. And we'll see you again next week. Thanks so much for joining us, and catch you then.
Thanks, everyone.
See you guys.